Welcome to Ivory Secrets. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. We post new stories every week. And before we get started, drop a comment below and let us know what city you're watching from. We love seeing where our listeners are tuning in from across Canada and beyond. Now, let's get into tonight's story. She didn't cry when she found out. She just stood in the kitchen of their Rosedale home, holding a mug of Earl Grey that had gone cold, and stared at the frost on the backyard oak, like she was reading something written there. That was Genevieve Aldrich, and that stillness, that absolute, unnerving stillness, was what people always underestimated about her. Genevieve was 44 years old. She had built the Aldrich Group from a two-room office on King Street West into one of Toronto's most respected private equity firms. She had sat across the table from men twice her age and twice her ego, and she had never once let them see her hands shake. She had learned early and at great cost that composure was the only currency that never devalued. Her husband, Dorian Aldrich, was 51. He was handsome in the way that certain men are handsome, not because of any particular feature, but because of how he held himself. He had a gift for making rooms feel like they orbited him. Genevieve had fallen for that gravity 2 decades ago, at a gallery opening in the Distillery District. She had been 23. She had thought she was choosing a partner. She had not known she was choosing a lesson. The lesson arrived on a Tuesday in late November, the way most devastating things do, quietly, wrapped inside something ordinary. Genevieve had been looking for the insurance documents for the Aldrich family's original painting, a small, oil-on canvas landscape by a lesser-known group of 7 artists, painted in 1931, appraised most recently at just over $2 million. The piece had belonged to her grandmother, Elspeth Aldrich, who had received it as a gift from the artist himself. It was not the most valuable thing in their home, but it was the most irreplaceable. She found the insurance file. She also found, tucked beneath it in the locked drawer, she had quietly had a second key cut for 6 months prior. A receipt, a transfer receipt, handwritten on the letterhead of a private art broker she didn't recognize. The painting had been assessed and released to a private buyer, whose address was listed as a condo on King Street West, Unit 2204. The name on the receipt was not Dorian's. It was a name Genevieve had heard only once before, mentioned briefly in a conversation she wasn't supposed to have, overhead at a firm dinner in September. Tessa. Genevieve set the receipt down on the kitchen counter, with the same care she used to set down a signed term sheet. Then she picked up her cold tea, looked out at the frost on the oak tree, and began to think. She did not call Dorian. She did not call her lawyer, not yet. She called the one person she trusted in the way you only trust someone who has seen you at your worst and chosen, anyway, to stay. Her oldest friend, a woman named Rosalind Chi, who had been her roommate at Queen's and was now a partner at a litigation firm in downtown Toronto. "Tell me you're not going to do anything tonight," Rosalind said after Genevieve had explained, with remarkable economy of words, exactly what she had found. "I'm not going to do anything tonight," Genevieve said. "And tomorrow I have a board dinner." A pause. "At the Ritz." Rosalind was quiet for a moment. Then, "Genevieve, I know. The Holt Foundation, Gala, yes. And Dorian is taking you. He has been planning to for weeks," Genevieve said. "He reminded me about it just this morning. He seemed very eager for me to look my best." Another silence on the line. "I'll have my associate check the condo address," Rosalind said finally. Quietly. "I already have someone on it," Genevieve replied. "I just wanted to hear your voice." That night, Genevieve slept 7 hours. She found that decision-making was cleaner when she wasn't exhausted. By noon the following day, she knew everything she needed to know. Tessa Wren was 26 years old. She was an assistant buyer at a commercial gallery on Yorkville Avenue. A gallery that, Genevieve discovered with a precise kind of bitterness, the Aldrich Group had contributed a sponsorship to the previous spring. Tessa had been seeing Dorian for approximately 14 months. She lived alone in the King Street condo. And on the 3rd floor of that condo, in the living room, visible from the street-level camera her investigator had been able to access through the building's lobby footage, was a painting. A small oil-on-canvas landscape, greens and ochres, and that particular gray of northern Ontario granite. Genevieve's grandmother's painting. She sat with that information for approximately 4 minutes. Then she opened her calendar, confirmed the gala details, and called her stylist. The event was the Holt Foundation annual gala, one of Toronto's most attended charity evenings, held each November at the Ritz-Carlton. Every major figure in the city's financial and cultural community would be there. Media coverage was guaranteed. The guest list included 2 federal cabinet members, the CEO of every bank tower on Bay Street, and Patricia Holt herself, the 78-year-old matriarch of the foundation, who had known Genevieve's grandmother and had once, at a dinner in 1987, held the painting in question while complimenting Elspeth's taste. Dorian had no idea that Genevieve knew. That, she had decided, was her advantage, and she intended to use it with the kind of precision she used for everything else. She wore midnight blue that evening, not black. She had always thought black was what you wore when you wanted to disappear. She wanted, tonight, to be seen. Her stylist had pulled a floor-length column dress from a Toronto designer she had supported for years, the kind of silhouette that moved like water. Her jewelry was intentional. Her grandmother's diamond earrings, the real pair, the ones Elspeth had left her specifically, the ones Dorian had a separate vault account under Genevieve's name alone. She was calm in the car. She was calm in the lobby. She was calm as she placed her hand on Dorian's arm and let him lead her into the room, and she was calm when she saw, across the sea of cocktail dresses and black ties, a young woman with dark hair and an expensive borrowed-looking green gown, standing beside one of the sponsorship pillars, holding a champagne flute and laughing at something the man beside her had said. The painting was not there, of course. You do not bring a stolen painting to a gala. But around Tessa Wren's neck on a fine gold chain was a brooch that Genevieve recognized, a small enamel piece Art Deco depicting a loon in flight. It had sat in a blue velvet box in the same drawer as the insurance documents. It had belonged to Elspeth. It was not worth $2 million. It was worth perhaps $400. But it was not Tessa's, and it was not Dorian's to give. Genevieve stood very still for one moment. Then she accepted a glass of Pinot Gris from a passing server, turned to Dorian and said, "I'm going to say hello to Patricia. I'll find you before dinner." He kissed her cheek. He had no idea. Patricia Holt was the kind of woman who had outlasted every trend, every scandal, and every person who had ever underestimated her. She was seated near the windows overlooking Front Street, deep in conversation with the Foundation's communications director, and she lit up when she saw Genevieve approach. "My dear," she extended both hands, "you look like your grandmother tonight." "That's the best thing anyone said to me all week," Genevieve said, and meant it. They spoke for several minutes, about the Foundation's current capital campaign, about the early winter, about a mutual friend who had recently retired to the Okanagan, and then, as naturally as breathing, "Patricia, I want to ask you something, and I want you to know that I've already spoken to counsel." Patricia's eyes sharpened. She had not stayed relevant for 5 decades by missing tonal shifts. "Elspeth's painting," Genevieve said. "The group of 7 piece, you remember it?" "Of course I do." I held it in my hands. Laughed at her for not insuring it properly. "It's been moved without my knowledge or consent," Genevieve said. "Through a broker I didn't authorize. I believe it's currently in a private residence in the city." She paused. "I also believe the individual in possession of it is in this room." Patricia Holt's expression did not change. But something in her posture did. A very slight squaring of the shoulders, the way a woman does when she is preparing to be useful. "What do you need from me?" Patricia asked. "I need 15 minutes. Genevieve said, "and your permission to use the Foundation's media liaison." Dinner was served at 8. The room settled into the particular ambient hum of a room full of well-dressed people who know they are being observed and are performing accordingly. Genevieve was seated at the head table, as she always was at this event, as a longtime major donor. Dorian was beside her. He was in good spirits. He touched her hand twice during the first course and said her dress was beautiful. She thanked him. She watched Tessa from across the room. The young woman was seated 3 tables back, next to someone from the gallery circuit. She had apparently come as a guest of one of the corporate sponsors. The loon brooch caught the candlelight when she turned her head. After the first course was cleared and before the keynote remarks began, Genevieve set her napkin on the table. She stood, and she walked, not quickly, not with any visible urgency, to the microphone at the front of the room, where Patricia Holt's communications director was about to begin the formal program. She leaned in and said 2 sentences. The director's eyebrows rose slightly. Then she stepped aside. What happened next took 4 minutes. Genevieve did not shout. She did not accuse. She spoke the way she spoke in every boardroom she had ever entered, clearly, and with every fact in order. She thanked the foundation. She acknowledged the significance of the evening. And then she said that she needed to address something that could not wait, because several people in this room were connected to both her families about to raise. And to the matter she with transparency was the only appropriate response to what she had learned in the past 24 hours. She described the painting. She described her grandmother. She described the broker's receipt, the address on King Street, and the fact that the transfer had been made without her knowledge, without her consent, and in violation of her rights as sole heir to that estate. She did not say Dorian's name. She did not need to. The people who knew them knew. She said, calmly, that she had already been in contact with the Art Loss Register, that her legal team had filed the relevant documentation that afternoon, and that the piece would be recovered through proper channels. She said she regretted raising this here, but that she had reason to believe delay would result in the painting leaving the country. She thanked the foundation again, by name, for its integrity and its decades of service to the arts community. Then she stepped back from the microphone. The room was very quiet. Tessa Wren had gone white. Dorian had gone a different color entirely. The particular gray-red of a man watching every story he has told himself begin to come apart. Genevieve returned to her seat. She picked up her fork. She ate her second course. She spoke to the guest on her left about his foundation's work in Northern Ontario. She was the most composed person in the room. At 8:10, a young woman appeared at her elbow. Not a server, Tessa. She was trembling slightly. The brooch was still around her neck. "Mrs. Aldrich," she said. Her voice was very small. Genevieve looked up at her. Not unkindly, not warmly. The way you look at someone when you have already decided exactly how this conversation will go. "I didn't know about the painting," Tessa said. "I want you to know that. I didn't know any of it was. He told me it was a gift. He told me he had the right to." She stopped. Her eyes were filling. "The brooch. He gave me this last month. I didn't know." Genevieve was quiet for a moment. "Take it off," she said. Tessa unclasped the brooch with shaking hands and held it out. Genevieve took it and set it beside her water glass without looking at it. "Sit down," Genevieve said. Tessa sat in Dorian's empty chair. He had left the table sometime in the previous 10 minutes. Genevieve had noted his departure without surprise. "If what you're telling me is true," Genevieve said, "then you will need to speak to my lawyer on Monday morning. You will need to provide a full account of everything he gave you, when and what he told you about the provenance. If you do that, honestly and completely, you will not be named in the civil action." Tessa nodded. She was crying now, quietly, in the practiced way of someone trying very hard not to be seen doing so. "He said you were separated," Tessa said, after a moment. Genevieve picked up her wine glass. "They all say that. It was not cruel. It was just the truth stated plainly, the way Genevieve stated everything." Tessa left the table a few minutes later. Several people at nearby tables had watched the exchange. No one intervened. A few women of a certain age met Genevieve's eyes as Tessa walked away, and what passed between them was not pity. It was recognition. Dorian was not in the lobby. He was not in the car. He had, she learned from the driver, taken a cab approximately 12 minutes after the remarks. Rosalind was waiting for a call. Genevieve stepped outside, November cold, the kind that sharpens everything, and dialed. "It's done," she said. "How did it go?" "Efficiently." A pause. "And Dorian?" "He left." "The painting?" "Rosalind." "I filed the documentation at 3 this afternoon. The broker cooperated within the hour. The painting in a bonded storage facility as of 6 p.m. She watched her breath cloud in the cold air. "I just needed tonight for the other piece. the brooch, and the room full of witnesses. Rosalind was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed, a real laugh, the kind that comes from somewhere deep. Only you, Genevieve. My grandmother taught me that public memory is the most durable kind. She looked back through the glass at the room inside, the candlelight, the gowns, the particular charged atmosphere of a story that has just become something people will tell. This room will remember what they saw tonight. That matters more than the hearing. Patricia Holt was waiting for her just past the doors. A glass of scotch in one hand, and the expression of a woman who has seen many things and is enjoying the pleasure of seeing this one. Your grandmother, Patricia said, would have done exactly the same thing, except she would have done it louder. I know, Genevieve said. I've always been more conservative. Patricia laughed and took her arm, and they walked back into the room together. And the room, the tables of influential people, the cameras, the carefully curated witness pool of Toronto's most connected night, turned, almost as one, to watch Genevieve Aldrich return to her seat, with her spine straight, and her grandmother's earrings catching the light. She did not look for Dorian. She didn't need to. She had the painting, she had the brooch, she had the witnesses. And she had, as she had always had, the particular power that belongs to the woman who sees everything clearly, acts at precisely the right moment, and never lets anyone see her hands shake.